We we are going to record this, and thanks, Alex, to talk about that as well.
All right. So yeah, let's get started. We did have some more registrants, but I guess they might hop on later on. They might not. But let's get this moving. So just want to welcome everyone. Thanks to Valerie and Alex for joining us, and for obviously Tyler for presenting and Pablo for joining as a guest speaker. So we're glad that you can all make it. This is the first installment of our small business webinar series. This webinar will focus on ways to adapt to the new economy and create the right business succession plan. And this is a great opportunity for business owners to connect and share their experiences. And I hope you guys benefit from this series. We want this to be a collaborative space where all of you can share your expertise as well. So, don't be shy about any questions or concerns you might have. We're all learning and growing together. And the mission here is to balance your business needs and your personal life. So with that said, the main goal is to facilitate an open forum for business owners to discuss topics they're facing today. And just lay down some ground rules just for the webinar. Just please stay muted unless you're speaking, unless you have a question or are participating in a conversation. Be respectful of others and know that this is being recorded. And we do encourage you to engage us and also ask questions. So on the agenda, the first 15 to 30 minutes, both Pablo and Tyler will be presenting the webinar. Following the presentation, we'll have a 15 to 30 minute Q&A, and we'll end with some follow-up remarks. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce both Pablo Feliciano and Tyler Reiser. Pablo is a software engineer turned product manager. He's worked at AOL, Capital One, and Digicel, and now runs his own consultancy. He works at the intersection of technology and education and is an expert in organizational transformation, leading companies to become user-centric, product-led organizations. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hey, Pablo.
Oh, there's a dog.
He was welcoming you.
Hello, dog.
And Tyler is a former Air Force bomb tech, doing a 10-year career in defense, fighting the proliferation of improvised explosive devices in the Middle East. He transitioned into finance and has specialized in business succession planning for small businesses. Tyler is also a current world record holder for the world's largest underwater human pyramid, and is writing a book about the crossroads of veteran transition and successful entrepreneurship. He currently spends half his time as the director of operations for a veteran nonprofit called Warriors Ethos, and the other half advising small businesses on succession and financial services. And welcome, Tyler.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Appreciate the introduction, and big thank you to Pablo as well. Thanks for being here and doing this with us. I think your expertise and insights into product design and just how companies just design thinking in general will add a lot of value to the conversation today. So thanks for coming, Pablo.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of this conversation and explore the opportunities and find different ways of adding a different lens, mine from a product perspective.
Great. And thanks, Alex and Valerie for coming. Love to get some input from you guys as we go through this, and just see if any of this is affecting you guys and just kind of what your take is on what we're talking about here as well. So thank you guys both for coming, and we look forward to continuing the conversation here. So just to kick us off, I think Simon Sinek, talks about you start with the why. So we're gonna listen to him here today, and just kind of ask the question, why are you building your business? Pablo, you're a business owner. What are some of the reasons that you're building your business?
Interesting question, Tyler. And first of all, there are two parts to this. Starting with the why. Over the years, I've seen that there are a lot of pain points that people come across as they're building a product that is intended for an audience, and that's something that I've been able to package, put together, and ultimately find my own way of bringing in methods and optimizing my own methods in order to deliver a value to customers. So that's been one part, and I'm passionate about building products. Along the way, I've also discovered that there's an intersection of technology and education that I've become very passionate about as well, and primarily sharing knowledge. And then the other part that is, the why behind this is I'm building a business for my family, the loved ones that I have.
Yeah, I think those are all great reasons, and I'm sure most people here can probably agree with a lot of that as well. And anybody else want to add anything to that to their why and why they're building their business?
I'll go. This is Valerie, and I started my business after I retired from 25 years in the Navy, and I thought I was just going to retire and have a good time and ride my horses and work out and enjoy life. And I realized it wasn't that I missed the getting up at 4 a.m. and driving into DC or things like that, but I did miss that need to use my brain and need to share the things that I had learned, similar to what Pablo said, that, you learn a lot in the military in 25 years. And I felt I had a lot of good experiences that I could still put to use and share with other people. And so that's what I did. And I originally started my business, I wanted to help veterans write. So that was and I went to the entrepreneur program. They told me, well, that's not a business, that's a nonprofit. So I turned my business around and started writing more as a business. And I still help veterans write, but that's not my primary mission anymore. And the reason I tell that little twist is because I've seen what's happened a lot with people is that they get along one line in business and it's not working for them. And they continue to sort of run into that wall instead of making those adjustments that are needed. And I've found in only 5 years of business, but that's one of the things that's a constant looking and saying, is this working? Is that working? And instead of trying to make the things that aren't working work, to find what will work and do it well.
Yeah, very, very nicely said. Maybe we'll just have you do the rest of the presentation here.
No, but
but those some great points though, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this as they go into retirement, where the vision that's been sold to us all our lives is that we're gonna go relax on a beach somewhere forever, but having that mental use is always nice, and especially if you get to utilize your 25 years of experience. So that's great. And to give back to such a great cause. So I appreciate that. So thank you for sharing that, Valerie.
Thank you.
Let me see here. So yeah, I always find this really interesting. I talk about the new economy all the time. And Pablo, I'd love to get your insights on this as well. But when I'm thinking about the new economy, I'm thinking about everything's evolving so rapidly. As you were just saying, Valerie, that We have to be constantly adjusting for these things. Are we doing the right things? Are we not doing the right things? And we have to be becoming more and more expert, and I kind of call that hyper niche. And we have to learn our topics and get better and better at them throughout time. So, Pablo, I guess from the design world, how do you guys kind of factor that in with design thinking and incorporate that?
Well, I think it's important to understand where we've been and where we are now, especially when we're putting products together. So back in the day, in our AOL days, we're getting everyone online, and then we collected a lot of data after that, right? All of this data, and now we're in an area where that data is being put together to create other products, and we have to synthesize that data. So you've seen a lot of companies that are expanding their product offerings. A lot of consultancies are now looking at product management as a service, and it's become more or less, well, how do we do the right thing? While we ask ourselves, four main questions: is it desirable? Is it viable? Is it feasible? And the most important one is, should we build this, right, from an ethical perspective? Altogether, this leads you into the point that you've been talking about, Tyler, and that's being adaptable, right? Adjusting to the uncertainty that's in front of us and making sure that we're marching in the right direction.
Yeah, that direction, that really makes me think a lot of, strategic planning and making sure we have that direction to be able to kind of sift through this new economy and figure out those things that work and things that don't work while testing those. Anybody having challenges with the too much information? Because I find that a lot of, so more and more, so many resources are just trying to sell me something versus actually providing depth in a particular field or answer. Anybody else running into that? And maybe it's just me and I'm the only one on information overload, but
no, Tyler, it's me. I was just giving Alex a chance to speak.
Okay, no worries.
Are you there, Alex? Did you want to chime into that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a good addition, but I can't really think of one.
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, absolutely, information overload, and it's unfortunate because it's, when we are getting so much information, it's really hard to tell what's important and what's not. And I've found that it really makes time management difficult, because sometimes it takes too long to figure out that you've just wasted your time looking at something that has really nothing pertinent to do with your business.
Yeah, you go down a rabbit hole a little too far or something.
Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. And I find that it stands out even just as much with, needing to wear so many hats.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn a new technology every other day. You have to find out how to do this new marketing platform or whatever it might be to, continue on what you're trying to do, just to try to compete and get your voice heard out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, you might have some insights on that from a marketing perspective and the challenges that can be faced there, just with trying to be heard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, have you ever used Facebook ads? It's like information overload, It's hard to know what to focus on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So why do we talk about the new economy and why this is all changing? I mean, really, how we tie this into succession is for some of those reasons of planning, needing to plan and do all those things. So in this rapidly changing environment, we really need to make sure where we're headed and the direction we're going. So, quick statistic for you guys. Basically 70% of family-owned businesses don't transition to the second generation. So that's quite a bit. And beyond that, 97% don't make it beyond the fourth generation. This kind of gets into the legacy and what people are leaving behind. I mean, family businesses run the gamut from, the smallest of businesses up to the Walton family. So it's a quite broad spectrum, but why might this be the case that these businesses aren't continuing on? Pablo, do you have any ideas what might happen?
Well, one of the things that I've been doing lately is reading this book by Collins and Professor Jerry Porras from Stanford, titled "Built to Last." And one of the things in the book it argues is that it's not necessarily being a visionary leader that makes a company successful, but it's more or less the visionary company and the organization, and how do you pass the knowledge that you've started out with onward to those that are going to be coming beyond, and so that the company outlasts the founder. And as you mentioned, the Walton family is one of those companies that has continued. Walmart. So yeah, in this space, it makes me wonder, Tyler, what do I need to prioritize with all the data that's out there, and why aren't companies also succeeding forward, right? Beyond just the data that's been done in books and that has been collected, what else is out there? What do we need to start thinking about? It's what I'm starting to think right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What should we be thinking about? I mean, from a succession standpoint, and having this organization or this this thing that we create, having it continue on, we should really be thinking about who's coming next. Who's going to be taking over the responsibilities that I have, and how long is it before I don't necessarily need to be reliant, or the company's not relying on me. So that's kind of how I'd phrase that. Does that help answer some of that?
It does. Yes, looking at all the stakeholders, the customers, the users. I come in from a product-led mindset, so there are always two components or two North Stars that I always talk about to clients and to my students. One of them being like, what is your clear objective? And then two, your customers, your users, the different stakeholders that are out there, what are their needs and their pain points. So when you mention something of that, when our business, who is it connected to, and what are those touch points, I immediately go towards like that user column, and I think of them.
Yeah, I'm the end user, the end customer. I think that's that's an important group to consider in your thoughts. But outside of that as well, on top of having to make sure you have your processes in place where you can service your customers properly, as a business owner, you're most likely going to be the person who kind of runs the show. You probably make most of the decisions, and a lot of things come through you. So what becomes important there is things that we just can't foresee in the future. So what happens if something happens to you? What happens if something happens to one of your partners? What happens if one of your key leaders within your company is unable to come into work tomorrow? And what impact is that going to have on your business? So this is just kind of risk management and thinking out about the worst things that we don't want to think about. But it can be a challenge. Any thoughts on this, Pablo, or anybody in the audience? Has anybody looked into these things for their business and planned out what would happen?
I have to admit, Tyler, these are questions that sometimes are really hard for a business owner to take into consideration, as we're always thinking of like, what's the next way for us to help out our clients and creating products that deliver value. And sometimes I personally have failed at looking at these options, primarily because I'm pretty young, new business in the space that I'm in. But curious to hear from everyone else. Have they thought about this?
I have thought about, what happens to my business, and it's funny because I started my business in 2014, and my initial plan was just to run a business for 5 years and then be done with it. And I've realized that was a really bad plan because, that's about the time where you've actually figured things out. so I changed my mind about that, but I have thought a lot about, well, what happens? How do I, how do I sell my business? And I've seen webinars and sessions and resources on doing this, but it's funny because every time I've thought about going to one of those, I sit and I think, well, I'm not really ready right now, where in reality it's kind of like saving for retirement. I should be thinking about that right now, and what to do. I because it's kind of a niche business, it's not something that I can really just turn over to any family members. It's not something a lot of people want to do. So I do need to think a lot more about it and put some time into that. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It can be a challenge to put some time into it, especially when we all get so focused on our core services. All of our own planning kind of tends to go to the wayside throughout that. So, yeah, good to start thinking about it. And anybody else with their businesses? Daniel, are you audible?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just listening. In terms
Okay.
of this type of stuff, and I haven't thought about this either since we're about a year and a half new going into this.
Yeah.
But like
Okay, cool.
I like what the last person was saying. It is kind of like saving for your retirement. It is something that I should probably be thinking about, but being so new in this business, it's kind of hard to think that far into the future when you have the day-to-day things all bombarding you,
Yeah, absolutely. Those day-to-days always come up, and then it's like putting out this fire, putting out that fire, trying to develop the product, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And over time, it becomes more and more relevant, especially. But yeah, always good to at least be thinking about it. We'll just continue on here. So when we're thinking about succession, I like to always think about who's involved. And, of course, there's the owner, which is everybody on the call here. And then, but outside of that as well is, probably the owner's family, as well as the management of the company and the employees of the company. So all these people have to be taken into consideration when we're thinking about it, and they'll be instrumental really in the whole process of the succession plan. Pablo, any thoughts here? I don't know when you're thinking about an organization and how it can run and the people involved. How do you think about that from a design perspective?
Looking at the customers, looking at not only externally, who are they serving, but internally as well. A solution has both ends, right? Multiple ends. Sometimes you're building a technical solution or an application product altogether, and it's going to have first layer of end users and perhaps some impact, unintended stakeholders down the line. And a lot of people fail to look inside. And looking at this image makes me think of all the people that are inside, your developers, your internal people, your testers, and so on. And that application also has to be good for the people on the inside. And looking in here, it makes me look at when we're planning a business, we should not always focus on the outside, but we should also focus on the inside. The family and employees are really important. So thank you for this image.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll have to add the customer down there as well. We often look at these things as when we're doing succession planning from the business owner's point of view, and let the owners concern themselves with the customers more. But that's some great points there.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, well,
to add to that, I would
yeah,
say it's probably even more important, more than ever, to be focusing on the internal and the employee experience, because there is so many options for employees or contractors or people that you have to go somewhere else. I think it's really about giving a place for employees to really enjoy and stay there instead of bouncing around, because there is so many options that people can go to.
yeah,
That's a good point.
great points, Daniel. And hey, Pablo, go ahead. Do you have something?
Yeah, it just makes me think of the vision, the core values of an organization. A lot of organizations are not necessarily there, with the established a core, and it's easy for employees not to feel a part of that or that connection. And it's only us as business owners to actually think about that and establish, what is that core that people come to us and feel a part of.
Hmm. Exactly. I know, I mean, just in the design agency world and just the creative world, because freelancers and people that can do the creative work, a lot of them are shifting towards freelancing and contracting, and these agencies are trying to kind of keep these employees retained. That kind of whole industry is also shifting because of uh, just like the new economy and everyone being able to be more independent.
Yeah, great point, Sam. That's one of the big things I see in the new economy is so many more people just freelancing and doing that, and that becomes hard because people try to do so many things oftentimes. But I think focusing on that expertise is real important there. But so great points on that. Just be cognizant of time. But Dan, thinking about you here, as your business grows over time, you're going to start to have more and more accumulation in your business, because what's going to happen is your revenue is going to increase, but so are your expenses. And while that's happening, you're going to be feeding the fuel back into the fire and reinvesting a lot of that. And as people are mentioning about the retirement piece, probably putting that stuff off to the side for the moment. As you continue to build this thing. So over time, this is going to become what I call a growing concern. It's a good problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. Because once this business gets up to $1 million, $5 million business, now it gets a lot harder to start planning out that transition and succession. So you can take steps earlier on. And really start thinking about it now. These are kind of the things that are involved in it. Thinking about the people that are involved and thinking about the unforeseen and the foreseen circumstances that could be involved. And really, when are we going to start planning these things? Whether it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, down the road. Does this bring anything to mind for you, Pablo?
Well, in the world of uncertainty, again, towards the end of this image right here on the far right side, when I look at those three icons there, it's hard to say that any of those options or unintended outcomes one could potentially be facing in the near time, right? And it's very difficult. But then on the far left side, that's where we're focused today. And, for us, it's just more of like, wow, I think it's really important to fully understand what information is out there and that can help us to really get to a planning, right? So I'm thinking like, what can we do? And how?
Yeah, and there are really quite a few things that we can be thinking about, and that we can think about from from a standpoint of how to do this. I won't get into the technical details or anything, but let me see. I think we have. Here we go. So what we really want to think about is just kind of when this is going to happen, how it's going to happen, and we'll come back to that, Pablo. But we also want to think about who's involved, and then with with what money is this transfer going to happen, right? So if we're thinking, let's say we're 10 years away and we have a key employee and they may want to buy the business one day, then we should be thinking, how far out is that? And now we know potentially the person and what might be involved in that transition. So then we can determine how that might happen. And then where do we obtain the funds to do that? Is it from a bank loan? Is it from assets in the business over time? Do they have money from somewhere else? So you can kind of figure out all those details. But really figuring out those pieces there can help kind of give a framework of how a succession could happen.
Is there certain information I should be thinking about at any moment in time? It almost feels that in order to have the equation work out, I need the values, right? I need to start thinking about, okay, and I'm gonna have to prioritize certain components here, looking at my employees, looking at the business. Where are they? Where is the organization? And perhaps I'm thinking like, are there any gaps out there? What information do I need to gather? That's what's coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, looking, I think this comes back to maybe Daniel's point earlier of being able to look inside your business and see what's actually happening there and how everything's running. And I think you can start to develop the processes there and think more deeply in that. Valerie, you've had your business around for 5 years. How do you guys think about this, or how do you think about your business? I guess I don't know how many employees or anything you have, but do you have any experience here as you think about that?
Well, no, I'm a sole proprietor, and I'm the only employee. My husband does my books for me and things like that, and I hire independent contractors to do graphics work and that kind of thing. But I don't have that part of the equation to think about, which I guess really makes it a lot easier. But as I did mention, anybody who's in business knows that you spend time building a business, and I've spent a lot of time getting all these certifications. It's veteran service disabled veteran owned small business, women owned small business, state of Maryland minority owned business, and on and on, and those things aren't easy to get. So when you put the time
kind of a high barrier
into doing that, you would like that to not go for waste. So those are the kind of things that I think about. I'm not looking to sell my business and make a ton of money, but I would really like to help pass along some of the things, some of the lessons learned, some of the things that I've done to someone else who would like to do something that like I did, but not have to go through the steep learning curve that I did. So those. But when there was something I did think about, though, is depending on the business, it's also when the market is right. For instance, in the, for a product that is really hot right now, is this the time to sell the business while the product is really hot? Or which, as we know, with this economy, what's hot today may not be hot tomorrow. So I think some of us in the service industry have a little bit less, don't have to maybe worry about that quite as much, because I'm a consultant, and consultants have been around, as long as as long as businesses have been around.
Right.
So I don't have that fear of all of a sudden my industry no longer being needed.
Sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of this is purpose driven as well for you, and a way for you to give back, which is a cool thing. Well, yeah, that's very cool, and I guess I could think of some scenarios where that happens, and I guess if you ever stop working, then it kind of stops, and then there are other times when maybe when somebody's mentored somebody along and been able to kind of continue what the other person had built, to continue to give back to those customers and clients. So very cool. Thanks. So we're wrapping up here soon on the webinar. I won't hold this up too much longer. But just a few things to think about if you do come into or as you're thinking about your business, a little bit more of a framework, you can always separate the control. If we look in the bottom left, kind of the control, the ownership of the business, and the day-to-day operations of the business. So it's always possible, if you're in a cash flow positive business, or if you're paying yourself a salary, you can hire somebody else. Sorry for the helicopters. You can always hire somebody else to take over those roles, and you can potentially maintain ownership for a longer period of time, or you can plan the succession out where you transfer that ownership as well. And that's really going to depend on your needs. And, as well, you're going to want to factor in the needs of the employees, as well as your family members that may or may not be involved, as well as the financial needs of the business owner themselves. Any thoughts on that from anybody, Pablo or the group, on kind of this way of thinking about your business?
I think the self-reflection of the needs of the personal, family, and also, the company's objectives are very high on my mind right now. And it's making me question, are there any resources that you recommend?
Any resources for balancing the needs of the business and the employees?
Or continuing in this topic as well, for us as business owners, as we're thinking about this tough decision. It's always a prioritization that needs to happen, and the more information that we can get, the more helpful. If anything comes to mind.
Yeah, I think a lot of that information is going to come from really, communication and speaking with the people that are involved, and identifying what it is that the owner actually wants, and how they want to see the business transfer. So a lot of it will come from inside and what the owner wants, but a lot of that will also come from the other key players that are there and involved, that are going to help, that will have to be involved for the successful transition. Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So then kind of wrapping up here, the last piece, also need to balance the needs of the business. So making sure that the operational funds are available for the business to be able to operate, making sure the right people are in place, making sure all those things are in place, as well as the management, so they know what's going on and everything that's happening there. Once again, coming back to communication is so important. And then finally, they're the financial considerations of the business overall. And that's your bigger picture overall of what you should be thinking about with succession planning in mind overall. And I know we kind of went over on our presentation time, so just go to this last point of, really all the people involved here are counting on us to be leaders, all of our employees, our managers, and family, and to ourselves as well. So it's hard to take a look at these things a lot of times, but making sure you're doing the right thing and communicating with your employees and family and staff, and making sure they know the plan and you're coming up with a great plan. So I'll kind of leave it with that. Pablo, did you have anything else to add there?
Not from my end. I think this is really interesting, looking at the business, not only for those uncertain scenarios that we don't think about in the immediate time, but also thinking about it more in the way that we have to break it up into the needs of the business, and also the people that depend on us. So no, I really appreciate this information. Thank you.
I guess one last question that I had from this slide is, how can I word this correctly? But I hear a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, this kind of common theme that comes up about always having to act like you know everything and be the person that like knows how everything's going on. How do you kind of balance that as a leader of your business when being an entrepreneur is such an uncharted territory and there is a lot of ambiguity? How do you be a leader, but also be someone that people can have confidence in and know that you know what you're doing, even though sometimes you don't. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's a fantastic question, and I I can only answer for myself on this, I guess, and maybe some others have some examples, but I think first leadership starts with ourselves and just making sure that we're doing the right things and doing what we're say we're doing, and then also empowering the management employees that we're working with, making sure they have some autonomy in what they're doing and they can make some decisions so that they can also be leaders and to their peers as well as to each other. So that's kind of my take on it and how I think about it. This is a great question. So anybody else have a take on that?
This is Valerie, and I would say, that those of us who are here today are are taking a step in the right direction, because part of that, what you said, Dan, about not knowing everything, is to try to continue educating yourself. And it takes time. You have to take time out of your schedule, and sometimes time is money. But if we want to, be better leaders and better business people, we have to make an investment in ourselves and our businesses.
Great. That was awesome. Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, I think that's something I need to do more of, investing more in myself with just resources.
Yeah, and I think it's also remembering that this is just a continuous process where we're always improving and trying to help others around us improve. And I think not knowing everything, it almost seems like the more you know, the more you don't know anything. So,
yeah.
And just having, making sure you have the right people around that can help you in making the decisions and also be leaders with you. So you don't have to know everything, where you have actual experts helping you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that's a cool topic, and it'd be cool to maybe do a whole webinar on it one day on leadership, and we'll have to find a really great leader to do that. But if anybody else has any other questions, just jump in. Otherwise, I've just got a couple good reads for you guys if you want to look into some things. Daniel, the finite and infinite games, that might really kind of link in with what we were just talking about. Okay. And then the Colby connection, that's about kind of understanding people's way of being productive at work, and it's very insightful for ourselves and for our employees. So always good to look into there. And then finally, we have some upcoming events as well. We're going to be doing a cybersecurity webinar coming up, a buy-sell agreement workshop, and maybe a strategic planning webinar as well coming up. But I'll go back to the Q&A. Anybody else have any questions on the whole topic, or we'd love some feedback if anybody has any feedback on how they felt everything went today, and what they liked about it, what they didn't like, and what we could do better, or any topics that we might see in the future.
Hey, Tyler, I have just a quick question about this business succession plan. I guess when is it too late for a business owner to start thinking about this? Or is that even...
the day you want to sell your business.
Right.
The day you want to not be in your business is the day it's too late. The day before that is the next worst.
Gotcha.
I hope that answers the question. Sorry to cut you off there.
No worries.
Any other questions? Any feedback?
No, but thank you for doing this, and
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. And I definitely learned something, and like I said, I'll go ahead and send you an email. This is Valerie again. I'll send you an email with the information on IVMF, and I'll go ahead and if I think of any other topics that for future webinars. I think the cybersecurity one's very important, so that looks good.
Tyler, just one note here. It might be really interesting to see if there are any opportunities for all of us to connect. Perhaps online or so, Slack or any other medium that allows more communication and sharing of knowledge among ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we have coming out here, maybe next week, we're going to have a LinkedIn group. So I'll just maybe send everybody an invite to that if you're interested.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks everybody for showing up. This has been, I love this topic, and it's one of my favorite topics, especially in planning. So if you ever have any questions about this or want to talk about it, always happy to chat. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekends, and thanks again for coming. It's been great.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank
Hope you guys all have a great weekend as well.
Great. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.